Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
Podcast for parents and families everywhere.
Whether you have kids that plan to attend college or you have current college students, you want them in and you want them to graduate.
You want a quality education that will give you a skill set that will make you marketable for the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow. I am Mark Stucker, and I'm a college coach from Metro Atlanta.
And I am Anika Madden, and I am a parent, also from Atlanta, currently in North Carolina.
And I'm David Williams, and I'm a dad from Chicago, Illinois.
This week in the news, enrollment and financial crises threaten growing list of academic disciplines. An article by John Marcus in the Hechinger Report. Mark and Nico will discuss how do we understand and compare financial aid awards. The bonus content will be how has early action changed? And our interview is part one with the Associate Dean of Admissions, William Segura, on understanding Emory University.
Good morning, friends. Don't have a lot of announcements today, but I do have one. I want to pick up, Dave, last week when we talked about Canadian schools. And, you know, we talked about the low cost because of the exchange on the dollar and just overall the low cost. And, you know, we talked about some of the, you know, political ramifications and enrollment being down. And, you know, and we also talked about some of those colleges actively recruiting students. But there's one thing that we never mentioned, and that was the value proposition. Yeah. You know, we said cost was low, but some of the most respected universities in the world are in Canada. When we're talking about the University of Toronto and McGill and UBC and many others, you know, I have a very delicate, nuanced relationship with college rankings. I believe rankings are a bogus way to pick a school. I think you can't rank churches. You can't rank girls or guys in your school. I think it's more about your personal match and how you fit and match with the school. But what I will say is when schools are highly ranked, they are very good schools. They are very good schools. The question whether or not they're good for you is still up for air, right? And so when you look at the most respected rankings in the world, the QS World Rankings, you've got University of Toronto, top 25. You've got McGill and UBC, top 50. And then you've got a lot of other schools that are up there as well. So just wanted to throw that in there. It's not just about the low cost. It's about the value proposition for the money. Just had to throw that out there. As for our admissions tip, so this one comes from my daughter, Joy. You're like, what's your daughter, Joy, taking over the podcast?
Go, Joy.
So I was talking to Joy, and I said, you know, Joy, one of the most challenging things for me is when a student wants to transfer and I'm brought into a counseling situation. I said, because on the one hand, there are lots of benefits to just persevering. The grass is not always greener on the other side. There's value to learning to build that muscle because sometimes maybe you've got a bad roommate or you haven't been acclimated to the school. And a lot of times if a student will just stick to it, by that second year, they'll find their tribe, they'll find their major, their teachers, their professors, all of that, and they'll realize, oh, this is a good place. I said, but on the other hand, if it's just not a good match, it's not a good match. And sometimes you want to cut bait, move on, and find a place that's good. I said, so what are your thoughts? I said, just talking with her. I said, this is one of the hardest counseling situations that I encounter. And then, you know, Joy's so into mental health. She's preparing to be a mental health counselor. She said, well, my view is if a student's mental health is significantly imperiled in their current place, then they need to move on. They don't need to stay if there's a mental health issue. And I thought, that's going to become my admissions tip. That's a good advice. If your mental health is really at stake and you're thinking about transferring, probably need to move on.
Right. In other words, if it makes you crazy, you got to leave. That works for relationships too sometimes. Anyway.
What are you trying to do? Get our people trying to get some divorces out there, Dave?
No, I mean general principles of life, man.
I hear you.
If it's making you crazy, you gotta go.
I hear you. Can't challenge you on that one. All right, Dave. Admissions vernacular. You're two for two.
That's right.
You're 2 for 2, man.
You owe me some chicken dinner, man.
Do you go 3 for 3 or do we go back?
Well, I say if I get up to 3, it ain't chicken, buddy. We're up to steak.
Well, I'm making it harder then.
Okay.
There it is. Engaged learning. Engaged learning.
Oh, that's just learning when you're really up and engaged and like really excited and you have a lot of things just helping you to get involved.
Man, you would be such a BSer.
Hey,
No,
sounds right to me.
that is wrong. Engaged learning is a euphemism. It's a term that a lot of schools use for their experiential learning, which are all
That's
the
what
things.
I said.
No, you said the student is engaged, like they're attentive, like they're locked in.
Engaged, experiential, synergistic.
So this is everything, from research to community service to internships to co-ops to study abroad to all these forms of teaching, living your learning out and making it stick in a practical way. So sometimes you'll hear schools use experiential learning, and sometimes you'll hear them use the term engaged learning. That's it.
Let's turn to college hot topics in the news.
Now, before we transition to our article, we're doing a trifecta. We're doing 3 straight weeks in a row of the Hechinger Report.
Yes.
Take it away, Dave.
Well, as you've often said before, the Hechinger Report are not light articles. They're actually quite in-depth. So, Mark, I think what I'm going to do is just give a brief summary, and then we are going to go point by point, and they have a lot of examples that we can talk about in this report.
Great.
So it's basically the title is Enrollment and Financial Crises Threaten Growing List of Academic Disciplines by John Marcus. And it's just summarized in this one paragraph that, quote, public universities nationwide have started purging themselves of majors and degrees with small enrollments, or that governors and legislatures don't think lead to jobs, including such stalwarts as anthropology, philosophy, languages, art, theater, and music. So, Mark, we're going to first discuss the why they're doing this, and then we're going to discuss the how they're doing this. So, under the first why, it's number one, that this pandemic has basically taken a multi-billion-dollar toll on education. So let's open that up for discussion, Mark.
Yeah, and they include several quotes in the article, and the numbers have gone up even more since then. For example, here's a quote from the article. The University of Michigan has forecasted losses as much as $1 billion through the end of the year. University of California system, $558 million in March alone, 1 month.
Yep.
Penn State system of higher education, $100 million in the spring. And it just goes on and on and on. It talks about the money Missouri has had to pull, and Ohio, and it goes state by state to show that these are not one-offs. So the cost of college is, the cost of the coronavirus and its impact on the schools financially is absolutely, absolutely grave. When it gets to the reasons why they're pulling the programs, you've got a couple things going on there. One, in some cases, these are programs that don't have high enrollment numbers.
Right.
So it's hard for people to justify paying professors that are going to be in just very small classes. Like the ROI doesn't look like it's there. Yeah. But it's also part of a broader attack on education in general, Dave, something you and I have talked about.
Can we hold that a bit? Because that comes under my other category.
So okay, I don't want to mess your outline up, man.
Yeah, you're messing with the outline.
Okay. Cut me off, dude.
Report, you got to come up with an outline.
There you go.
Well, the second why is, and you've talked about this before, the ongoing cuts to higher education.
Yes.
And that actually 2008 state allocations fell 4 years straight. And then there was a little blip that seemed like we might be getting back on the track. And then this pandemic hit, and it's accelerating again. And they brought out many examples from New Jersey to Ohio. But why don't you discuss that, Mark?
Yeah, but it's you're really in a difficult situation when you're trying to manage a state budget, because when your money gets slashed, you got to figure out, okay, well, what can you afford to cut? And it's really difficult because, you can go after pensions for all your workers. That's not going to be popular. Roads and bridges and all those projects, not going to be popular. Closing hospitals, those are not going to be popular. K through 12 schools, that's certainly not popular. And oftentimes, one of the reasons why people make their cuts on higher education is because they feel like they can pass those costs on to the consumer, and they feel like there's loan programs out there for those that don't have the money. So it feels like it's the lesser of two evils.
Right.
But then over time, when that happens, you just end up eviscerating your public school education system, or you end up doing like what Pennsylvania has done, pass so much of the costs on to its residents that the public colleges are, mirroring private colleges in terms of costs. And, public is almost public in name only.
Right.
And so those are the choices. And that's a trend that's happened. And we've seen it any time there's been a hit to the economy, like most noticeably the global financial crisis, because that was just pretty recent and there still hasn't been recovery. And it also does depend a lot on the philosophy of your school, Dave. I mean, the philosophy of your state, because you've seen some states that have said, no, we will not cut that. And they've beefed up and kept money. Some states in the Northeast have been pretty good. And then you've had other states like Arizona that's been terrible, and others as well. And so some of it depends on how much of a commitment is there to education as a priority within our legislatures.
And that feeds into the third point, which the article makes a point of saying that for many people, they believe this is an ongoing philosophical onslaught of many ideologies against the humanities, and that against the fields that they consider to be liberal or not scientifically oriented.
No, that's definitely true. Like, there's no question that there's a correlation between more conservative politics and slashing of money. And there's no question about it. I mean, you can even look now look at the Democratic proposals that are up for the new term. There's much more of an investment in education as a priority within budget. And one of the reasons for the slashing is the belief that liberal schools have become so liberal that they're indoctrinating people in ways that are, either inaccurate or deleterious for society. And so that's part of the justification. Like, why should we give a lot of money to people who are indoctrinating or training people to think in a way that may not agree with our politics? And that's part of what, why should we pay for that? We don't want to pay for that. We can spend our money in other places. So that's part of what leads to the deprioritizing of education, is that belief that liberal indoctrination is happening there. I don't think that's good. Why would I support something I don't think is good?
That's right. And then that leads to the last major point, and that the programs are emphasizing increasingly education as a preparation for finding employment. In fact, they have a quote that essentially says that students and families are, quote, fleeing humanities for engineering and business. And we have several examples, but Mark, I'll just throw this one out to start the discussion. They talk about the University of Alaska at Anchorage proposing eliminating 70 degree programs, including English, theater, creative writing, and sociology. I mean, foundational fields of study in the humanities. So,
yeah, and I'll go on because the article also goes on to talk about Ohio University. Here's a quote from the article. Faculty at Ohio University report that some colleagues in the social sciences and humanities were given notice they would be laid off, including African American, gender studies, and a number of other things. And so, you and I have talked about this before, Dave. We really believe very strongly that a college education is not just about a quick passport or entry into the job market.
Correct.
It's about training you how to think. It's about learning how to understand people who are different than you. And it's about giving you a skill. And that may sound very philosophical, but that stuff will prepare you foundationally for the flexibility to be able to maneuver as the job market changes.
Absolutely.
And so there's a core debate about whether that concept is just like mumbo jumbo fluff and doesn't work in the real world, or whether that really is foundational. It also makes you an interesting person, makes you an inquisitive person, makes you a more understanding person, potentially a more compassionate person. And so I'm very concerned about this. I'm very concerned about the movement away from the humanities and the social sciences and things like music and art and history and philosophy. I get it. I get that the higher the cost of college gets, the more people want to know what's the ROI. You know, this also adds another layer of complexity to this, right? The higher the cost of college is, the more people are like, okay, if I'm going to pay X, then I want to know I'm coming out and making Y. Yeah. And some of these professions are ones where in and of themselves, they don't necessarily pay a lot. But of course, we know most people don't end up working in things in their major. Yep. You know, they may get a background in English or history or philosophy or humanities, art, this, that, the other. They could do anything with their lives with those backgrounds. And so, you know, hey, as a tip out there, it can be an opportunity at certain schools to, you know, there are schools that are looking for people in these majors because they're getting so few coming in the front door.
Yeah, so I love to steal these wonderful pedantic terms, but one writer described what's happening in education as an insidious intellectual parochialism. But the point is that all the fields that cause us to look outward culturally, whether it be African American studies or languages, or cause us to look at different ideological frameworks, whether it be terms of political science or philosophies, seem to be getting a short shrift because we just think all we need is to be engineers and business majors. But if we're engineers and business majors who don't know how to think, analyze, and have qualities of tolerance and intellectual curiosity beyond our own concerns, it leads to many of the issues that we're seeing today. So,
yeah, and you know, it's easy to look at something like, you know, they profile this African diaspora course in the article as it cut back. Listen, I can tell you, Spelman College right here in Atlanta has a legendary course on the diaspora, and it impacts students that go there in profound ways. Just that one course to understand everything that happens and how we're all interconnected, even beyond just the United States, you know, but to Africa and to the Caribbean and all of that. And just having an understanding of that and being able to understand your place in the world and your place in context, there's just great value to that. So this is an assault on education, and it's not an easy solution, Dave, because once again, the higher the cost gets, the more people want to know, well, what's the payoff? You know, I mean, it's a lot easier to justify being in majors that don't look like they in and of themselves lead to high paying careers.
Right.
If you're not breaking the bank to get the degree.
And I'll just wrap it up with one last point, which I thought was very interesting, which was, now that we're knowing they're cutting majors, how are they cutting majors? And they had a whole section on the concept of low productivity programs. And that, quote, where once the value of an academic program was a matter of deliberation and negotiation between the universities and the faculties about the intellectual merits of the programs, now universities use sophisticated algorithms and calculations that divide faculty salaries and other expenses by what students pay per credit hour to determine which courses lose money. So it's like, if you're not making the cut, you're not big, you know?
Yeah, that was probably my biggest takeaway from the article myself.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm very much familiar with the cutting programs going on and the decrease of state expenditures. But to see those sophisticated algorithms being put in place to see how much money you're generating and how that's being used, wow, that's deep. Right. You know, well, we've always said that schools also are businesses, and to some extent they have to be. Nonprofits have to function as a business from the standpoint of being solvent.
Right.
It's just painful sometimes seeing how that flushes itself out sometimes in an everyday life. And you know, this is just one more way that coronavirus is impacting all of us in society.
Right.
And there's no indications that this is just a one-year hit. This looks like all indications are this is going to be a multi-year hit.
Well, I just wanted to dovetail on the one other point that hit me when I read the article. This is not in the article, but it's something that you've discussed in the past. How that's why it's so important, I think, to choose the right college for you according to your particular need. Because if you are interested in music or anthropology or African American studies, you can't just assume that just because you're going to a big college that they're going to necessarily cater to your intellectual interests. And you really have to do the homework to make sure that this is a course of study that the university not only has, but is dedicated to continuing and supporting at a level that is going to make you happy.
I think we'll wrap it up with that and put a bow on it.
Awesome.
Now it's time for our step-by-step walkthrough of the college admissions process.
So, Anika, guess where I'm going to be from Thursday through Monday?
Hawaii?
Oh, man. You're like my kids. Big baller shot caller. I'm rolling it in. I'm going to be in North Carolina.
Oh, really? Where are you going?
This is one of these cases, glass half full, glass half empty. I'm going to choose glass half full. So, got bad news like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Karis took her car into the shop.
Oh, that's right.
Prius dealer. Mm-hmm. And they're like, $4,600. We need to replace all 15 gasket heads. We see one leak, but we're going to do it. We're going to do the whole thing. Well, Karis has connections. One of her very, very best friends' dads works for a Prius dealer, and he quotes me $1,000 for labor and a couple hundred for parts. So I just switcherooed, let her have my car, and I'm going down to Cary, North Carolina in the Research Triangle to save like $3,600, $35. Yeah, I'm gonna save $3,500. I'll take that trip to save $3,500. Besides, I love the Research Triangle too, so I'm actually looking forward to it.
Oh, good for you! All right, It's gonna be a nice drive, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The question is, will we have a new president by then? Because that's the question.
Listen, wake me up on November 4th or
or don't wake you up.
Or don't. Please.
All right. Today we are looking at how do you understand and compare financial aid awards. Chapter 145 in a book I wrote called 171 Answers to the Most Asked College Admissions Questions. It's actually a very, very, very important topic. And I might immediately go from jovial and upbeat and lighthearted to blood-boiling rage over here, Anika, because nothing makes me angrier and pisses me off more than how colleges, not all colleges, but a lot of them handle aid awards. So you've read the chapter. What were your takeaways? What questions you have? Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start from the top. You get this letter from the college that outlines your aid award letter. And it is supposed to, supposed to, list the expenses of the college, the resources that you're receiving to help with the cost, and your financial obligations.
Yeah, let me just throw on one thing. Now, this is only going to be for people who apply for financial aid. If you don't apply for financial aid, you won't get it. But if you apply for financial aid, then this is what happens. And go ahead, take it. Sorry, I just want to.
No, that's good. I mean, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how people are confused about some stuff. So either way, so you get this letter, which is all confusing, but one attempt. And I'm gonna mention this, and then I want you to kind of take the lead on this because I'm sure you want to add more context to this before we dive into what the problems are, or some of the leading problems are with these letters. But the Department of Education came up with what is called the shopping sheet that most colleges have adopted. And the shopping sheet is supposed to clarify, and I think you even mentioned an annotated version where they even describe the sections of the award letter to really spell out what you're looking at, basically. And a couple of problems that I already saw in that, when you say most colleges use it, okay, number one, why aren't all colleges using it? And that still has only minimized the problem around these letters. So I'm going to let you take this thing from here.
All right. So remember last week, I said no corny illustrations next week?
You say that every week, right?
No, I'm not going to do any today.
Oh, okay.
But I am going to do something that I used to do that got on your nerves a long time ago.
What you going to read to us? What you going to read?
Exactly. I'm going to read.
You haven't done it in a while. It's all good. But this is worth it. I know this is worth it. So,
okay. All right. So this is, okay, here's what it says. This is from my book, page 551. In an excellent article by Mark Kantrowitz on Advisors titled How to Read Financial Aid Award Letters, Kantrowitz discusses some of the biggest areas where aid awards confuse families. Nearly a third of financial aid award letters do not mention the college's cost of attendance. Of those that do, many do not list all of the college costs. Many list only the direct costs, which are paid to the college. Note that financial aid is not based on or restricted to only direct costs. And half of all public colleges' costs are indirect costs, such as textbooks and supplies, transportations, healthcare, computers, student health insurance, dependent care, and other living expenses. This forces the student to search on the college's website and course catalog to get information about all the college costs. Even when colleges provide information about all the college costs, many do not provide realistic information about textbook, transportation, other living costs. Financial aid award letters are often blur the distinction between grants and loans. More than half of the award letters do not include basic information about loans, such as the terms and conditions, such as the interest rates, monthly payments, and total payments. The award letters often list loans with just an award name and award amount, without any signals that the loan is an amount that must be repaid, usually with interest. Award letters rarely use the word loan as part of the name of the loan, and sometimes use cryptic labels like L instead of loan or LN. Loans and grants are mixed together, further confusing families as to what a loan and what a grant is. Award letters sometimes use language that treats loans as though they reduced college costs. So I'm going to stop there because I don't run out of my grace with you. You gave me some dispensation, and I could just sense I was at the end of it.
And as I said, it was all worth it because, well, those are all the major issues that is happening with these things.
Yeah, and so that's the essence of the chapter, is you cannot trust that aid award to accurately describe and include all of your expenses. So what do I recommend, Anika?
Well, I know you mentioned an online calculator.
Correct.
Which is, what is it, through the College Board?
Yes.
Yeah.
College Board has a really good one. There's another organization called You Aspire, and we've interviewed them on here. Right? Really early, our first year of the podcast, I interviewed You Aspire, and it had to do with when people complete the FAFSA and they get verified. And I did an interview with them on FAFSA verification, but they've produced actually the best a tool that I've ever seen. But the College Board one's really, really good as well. And what you do, and you can just go, by the way, if you go to bigfuture.org and under the financial aid section, you'll see a list of a bunch of calculators. There's about 12 of them. Most of them have some place in the college process. But the nice thing I like about this calculator is it has a spot for you to make sure that you include every single itemized expense that a student has when they go to college. And so what I encourage students to do is to take the aid award and make sure you're doing an apples for apples comparison. And they have one of those nice little things, Anika, when you like rotate your mouse over something, like a pop-up explanation box pops up. And so that's what I want everybody to do, because you really need to be comparing apples for apples. And they're so confusing that it's like you need a PhD in this stuff to figure this stuff out. Anika and I are so grateful for everyone who has financially supported our podcast. It allows us to pay our staff and cover our other auxiliary expenses involved in having a weekly professional podcast.
At the start of every month, we're going to start sending a special gift to anyone who financially supports your college-bound kid.
I will be sending our donors this bonus content once a month directly to your email. The bonus content will be between 10 to 15 minutes in length. Usually it will be a college-related topic that I'm passionate about. Occasionally, it'll be another bonus hot topic in the news segment. Sometimes it'll be an answer to a question that one of our listeners submits to us via email.
And you'll receive these monthly audio blogs for a gift of any amount. We know that $5,000 to one person is $5 to someone else, and we don't want your budget to be a hindrance to you receiving this additional bonus content. So if you want to support our show, just go to yourcollegeboundkid.com and click the donate button. And if you've already financially supported our podcast, you will automatically start receiving this bonus content via your email.
This bonus content is our way of letting our financial supporters know in a tangible way how much we appreciate you. And if you have any questions at all about our monthly bonus content, just send your questions our way. That's to questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. Once again, questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com.
So I'm curious, Mark. So what have you seen to happen when people don't know to do what you just said to do? What have you seen happen? Like, what's been the result of these confusing letters? Are people like getting over their heads where they're like, oh, wait, I didn't know I had to pay this? Or like, what literally has been happening?
Well, that's a great question. There are a lot of problems that come. One of them is, let's say a student gets work study, okay? You know, an on-campus job or an off-campus nonprofit. So the way the aid award letters are structured, you know, they show all the expenses of the school, and then they show you the money you have coming in. Grant here, scholarship here, you know, a loan here, work study. So it can make a family think that they have work study money to apply immediately to the billable costs of the school. And that's not how work study works. So the other time I would say to a student not to apply early action is if you're coming off of a bad semester of grades or your grades weren't that great before. Because the thing about early action is they're going to have to evaluate you without seeing that fall semester of grades. And so to apply off of, you know, mediocre grades, not going to be in your best interest. So what's changed now is that colleges have realized that there is a very high correlation between people that apply early action. Remember, not early decision, which is binding. People who apply early action and people who they are able to yield. In other words, people that apply early action are more interested in them than people that apply regular admission. And so there's a little bit of an asterisk, not for all schools, but for more schools than there used to be, that is put on a person when they apply early action. Another way of putting it, I was having a conversation with a college in the South, I won't mention their name, and they were telling me about a really strong applicant who applied regular admission. And they said, that was confusing to us. And I said, did you think about deferring them? And they said, yeah, we did, because why are you applying regular admission? Are you just treating us as a backup? Do you not have any interest in us? That is a different mindset. That mindset has changed. And so now schools are also using it as a litmus test to see who's interested in us and who's not really serious about us. And so that's something else to consider. And, you know, I started working with a new student on the West Coast recently, and they came to me because they said, you know, Mark, we thought we did every single thing right with our oldest son. He got like a 1570 on the SAT, took it one time, he had 6 APs, and he got 5s on all of them, and he got shut out. He didn't get in Columbia. He didn't get in the University of Chicago. He didn't get in the University of Washington. And there was another school Stanford. He didn't get in Stanford. They're like, what did we do wrong? You know, and so one of the things I started exploring more, and I found out didn't apply early to any of these schools. Okay. And Chicago had concerned them a little bit because they both had alumni status there, both parents actually.
Oh, wow.
You know, it was law school. It was law school, but it was alumni status for law school.
Yeah.
But see, Chicago is very notorious. They have said, and they've made it clear, well, if we provide a non-binding way for you to apply and you don't take it, you're sending us a message that we're a backup. And that's where things have changed. So schools are using early action as a litmus test. So now, you know, now it's tricky because if somebody's coming off an absolutely putrid spring grades, it still is difficult to apply early action there. But here's how I look at it now if you're not coming off the best grades in the spring. If you have any chance at all of getting in, okay, they may defer you to the regular round rather than just come right out and deny you. But at least you've signaled interest to them, that you have interest. So this signaling of interest through early action is something that schools are noting. And so now I tell everybody that you should apply early action as long as you can do a quality application. I think the trade-off of coming off a bad semester is worth it to signal interest to the school. No, they'll probably, if they deny you, they probably were going to deny you anyway. And if they defer you to the regular round, at least you showed them you were interested in them.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
It does. So what's the time difference between the early action and the regular? Is it normally like a couple months between the two deadlines?
Normally. So normally early action will be November 1, November 15th, October 15th type deadline. And then regular admission is normally going to be between January 1 and January 15th.
Okay.
It's about 60 days. That's you know? Now I'll share another story to kind of show how this whole thing works. And this sinks into what we talked about demonstrated interest a couple of weeks ago. This shows how early action sinks into demonstrated interest. And this all the way sinks back to, remember, Nika, maybe 4 weeks or so ago when I talked about my meeting I had with Yale. Okay, so here's another interesting story from that meeting. I was going to share it, but I didn't. I'm going to share it now because it links to this early action conversation. So now I'm going to get in the weeds. There are some schools that have a different version of early action. Okay? There's actually two different versions. There's what's called single choice early action. There's what's called restrictive early action. And this means, in the case of single choice early action, basically it means that you can apply early action to us, but you cannot apply early action to any other schools. So you need to be letting us know by your early action that we're your top choice, at least as of now. Now, if you read the fine print, sometimes they'll make exceptions for public schools in your own state. Sometimes there's some exceptions. You have to read the fine print. But for the most part, you can apply to another private school that has early action.
Well, doesn't that take away the meaning of early action, though? I mean, that's why early decision is there, because you're trying to commit to it.
Right, but you're not. Here's the difference. Remember, with early action, you're free to wait all the way until May. Okay? You could still apply to other schools' regular admission. You just can't apply to other schools' early action. And you can still compare. So you're not obligated to go. With early decision, you're obligated to go. Right? Okay. So it does hinder some of your freedom, but it doesn't make you go to the school. So you still see the difference with early action, right?
Okay, so how do they know that if I'm applying to other early actions or not? Like, how would they know that?
Well, one, it's just considered a moral ethical breach, you know. Two, if you ever got in there, sometimes admission officers communicate with each other. Friendships are emerged. Information is exchanged. Okay, so, but I want you to see how all this ties together. So I was having a conversation with Yale because I don't like this restrictive early action. Okay, Harvard has it. Stanford has it. Yale has it. And up until this year, Princeton's had it. Those are the only 4 schools that have it. Now, that's single choice early action, okay? And I'm getting confusing. 2 other schools, Georgetown and Notre Dame, have a different version of what we call restrictive early action. In their version, you can apply early action to their school, and you can apply early action to other early action schools, but you can't apply early decision somewhere. In other words, you have to be free to accept their offer. So if you apply to Georgetown or Notre Dame early action, and then you apply early decision to Penn, then you can't even accept the early action offer because you're obligated to go to Penn. So that's a different version that says you can apply EA to multiple schools, but you can't apply ED. But for these 4 schools, Stanford, Harvard, Princeton, and Yale, they have what's called single choice early action. You can only apply early action to their school. Here's the problem with that. These schools are so hard to get into. So a really strong student applies to those schools. They don't get in. Now they haven't been able to apply early action anywhere else. So now they've hurt themselves not only at the killer selective school, but the other schools. So I'm sitting down with Yale. And one of the reasons I'm bringing this up, partly to show early action has changed, but also to show how even when schools say they don't use demonstrated interest, they really kind of do a lot of times. So I'm sitting down with Yale and I said, I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't like your policy of single choice early action. And I know that Princeton has given it up for a year and they're not doing it. I said, is there any talk in your office about giving up, single choice early action? Because people apply to Yale, they don't get in. And then all the other schools they could have signaled their interest to early, they don't get that opportunity to do that. So they're left on the cold. The representative was really candid with me. She said, look, Mark, I totally get it. I've done your job. And if I was in your position, I probably would be dissuading people from doing it as well. But we will not give that up. She was very, very adamant. And she said 90% of the people that we accept through early action come. And we rely on that knowledge in order to do our planning. And especially in a year where we're going test score optional, and the research shows you get 8% more applicants when you go test score optional. So I just want you to see, schools are using early action as a way to assess whether or not you are interested in them. And if you fail that test, a lot of schools will have a higher admission standard for regular admission. Clear, confusing thoughts?
It's frustrating. I could say that, but I don't know. To her point, we're not budging, so it is what it is. We just need to all know what it is. I think is the most important piece. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I love early action. I mean, I love the fact that you can find out early without having to be locked in. I think it's amazing, and I'm a huge fan of it. But a lot of times, I work with students and they see, the early action. I don't know if I want to do that. Let's go. I'll apply to regular. You don't realize you just put yourself into a more competitive applicant pool. That's what I want people to know. And so you need to be ready. Basically, you should be ready to have everything ready to go by October 15th. And in ideal world, November 1st for sure.
Wow.
Just so that you don't miss these deadlines. Okay, friends, you've heard William Segura. You know what he has to say about different admissions committees and different ways in which file reading is done. The last 3 weeks, we've talked about 3 different ways decisions are made with 3 different file reading methods from an admissions committee standpoint. Now we're transitioning, and William's going to talk about Emory University. Will starts with his 5-minute overview of Emory. Then he talks about a number of outstanding majors that Emory offers that fly under the radar. He also talks about the majors they're most well known for. Then he talks about Oxford College, and he explains how the Oxford campus is as much a part of Emory as the Atlanta campus is. Finally, Will talks about what Emory needs to work on to become an even better school. Listen and enjoy.
And now, this week's interview with a special guest.
All right, William, let's transition to talk about Emory's. Can you give sort of the 3 to 4 minute elevator speech, who Emory is and what Emory's greatest strengths are, whatever else you want to share?
Man.
Hey, if you can't answer that, man, you're going to have a tough time at a college fair.
Before I dive in too deep, we're just looking kind of like a broad, you said 5-minute elevator speech, just kind of
Sure.
General tips on Emory.
Yeah, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, we're located in Atlanta. We are a private institution with approximately, let's call it 5,700 undergraduate students, roughly around another 6,000 graduate students. We've got professional and pre-professional programs on campus, including our School of Nursing, a School of Medicine, a School of Public Health, our business school, our School of Law, School of Theology. And so we're really well equipped to give students an opportunity to be involved in those really strong pre-professional opportunities. But also we have really robust liberal arts curriculum on campus as well, with incredible faculty. And so, for example, Jericho Brown won the Pulitzer Prize, and he's in our creative writing department. Or we have an incredible film and media management program. If you look at movies like The Avengers, where are they filmed? In Atlanta, And so you think about all the robust opportunities for students to be here. And students might say, well, I want to be in a traditional college campus, right? I want the trees and the grass and the quad, but I also want access to a large metropolitan city that has a lot of activities and things that I can do and opportunities for internships and jobs and things like that. And I would say Atlanta and Emory is that community. I mean, you're going to get that with our campus where we're 10, 15 minutes away in traffic to get to downtown, midtown, or Buckhead. So you can easily get to those parts of the city in traffic. And I say that in all seriousness because you'll have traffic, right? So we're very close. And then we've just got incredible amenities in the city of Atlanta. Not to mention that we are what I would call a college town because there's so many colleges and universities in the city of Atlanta. But we're also a huge metropolitan city. So home to the 1996 Olympics, which some of the listeners may not have been born then, right? Home to the busiest airport in the world, home to companies like Coca-Cola and Home Depot and Delta and UPS and CNN and Porsche and the CDC and all these companies that are headquartered in Metro Atlanta. And so it just gives students a really robust offering to have a really incredible academic experience, right, from a really well-known place in an incredible city with a really incredible community. And the last thing I'll say on that is it all sounds amazing, but we're not perfect, right? But the thing I admire about Emory the most is that they're quick to acknowledge their imperfections and to try to address them and make steps towards making things better, which I always appreciate so much about it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now I'm going to ask the question everybody hates to answer, but I'm going to try anyway, because I know every single department is amazing and every professor is amazing. I know that, right? But a lot of times when people think of Emory, they will think of everything to do with the medical field because you guys are such a powerhouse, or they will think of business because you guys are such a powerhouse. What are some other programs that fly under the radar where Emory is distinctively strong that may not be as well known?
I think I already spoiled the surprise a little bit because I talked a little bit about them, but people forget about our incredible humanities programs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mentioned Jericho Brown a second ago. Hello, Pulitzer Prize winner, on campus, creative writing. People forget about humanities. They forget because they're thinking pre-medicine, they're thinking business, they're thinking public health, they're thinking neuroscience, they're thinking economics, they're thinking data analysis. I mean, they're thinking all these different nursing. I mean, they're thinking all these other things. But we just have such an incredible creative writing and humanities program at Emory. The other thing I would mention, and again, I've touched on this too, I've touched on this as well, is our film and media management program, which partners with the Wizard Business School. I mean, those are two programs that people just forget, right? They just, I didn't even know that was there. But the film media management program is incredibly robust. I mean, because they partner with Wizard Business School, which is our business school on campus. And we've got alums in all the major studios across the country. And so when you think about the artists and filmmakers and the studios in Atlanta, it's just becoming a more and more robust environment. And so I guess I would probably put that under the umbrella of the arts at Emory. People forget about the arts. And so we have our incredible Schwartz Center for Performing Arts. We have an incredible director in Paul Bassin, which leads a lot of our arts at Emory. And so I tell people, if you're looking for a conservatory type experience, the quality, the education, the values, the experience like we talked about, but you also want the opportunity to do other things on campus besides music, Emory is a place where you can have those experiences. And I recognize that that's a bold statement, but I say it with full confidence, knowing the resources we have available to our students on campus.
And I know there's so many things we can talk about because I know Emory's got strong computer science. I know political science is actually very strong at Emory. I didn't realize how strong political science was. I think it's pretty easy for you to attract top tier talent, for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, it's such a great location and such a beautiful campus. It's gorgeous. By the way, that architecture, tell me that architecture. I've never seen that architecture anywhere else. Any history on that?
I might have to Google that, to be honest with you.
That's okay.
I'm not going to begin to give you information that's not accurate, but I can tell you there's a lot of Georgia clay on campus. And then we've got these Spanish tiles that you'll see.
Yes, that's what I'm referring to.
And you'll kind of see them in this kind of like orangey red Spanish tile, along with some marble-esque design throughout campus and our buildings. And so, some of our listeners here might think college and might think of a traditional setting, and I won't name the type of style it is because it varies from place to place. But Emory's unique in the sense that it doesn't have that kind of traditional architecture that you might think when you think of a college. But I think it's beautiful in its own way, and it's incredibly consistent. You'll see it in the buildings and the architecture throughout campus. It's one of the things I love. And if you Google Emory and kind of see an aerial view of campus, the beautiful thing is you'll see the Atlanta skyline. You'll see these amazing Spanish tile buildings all across campus in a tree-lined city. And so I absolutely love that.
Let's take a break to learn about Mark's recommended resource for the week.
Friends, one of the most important things, particularly to women, about the college that their son or daughter ends up attending and selects is the safety of the campus. So where do you go when you want to find out if your campus is safe? Well, that's our recommended resource for episode 145. It's a U.S. Department of Education website. CSS is what we call it, but it just stands for Campus Safety and Security. Now, it's got a long URL, so I'm not going to read it to you, but I'll put it in the show notes. But basically, this source is going to give you data for an individual school. If you want to look it up and get the safety and security information, you can compare multiple schools. You can download custom data. You can follow trends. And it pretty much has every campus that you could imagine in there. Any school that participates in the federal student aid program and gets Title IX funding, which is most schools, their information is here. We'll put the link in the show notes. Check it out to see if the campuses you're considering are safe and secure. Now return to my interview with William Segura. You know something? I just thought about this. We would be totally remiss, Will, to not talk about Emory and Oxford College and how all that works, which I love. I think is completely creative and unique, and I've never seen it anywhere else. So why don't you kind of take some time to explain to everybody what we're talking about?
Sure. Thanks for prompting that, Mark. And I should preface, when I say Emory, and when we say Emory University, we're talking specifically about our two undergraduate colleges. And we have two undergraduate colleges as part of this process, and those are Emory College and Oxford College. And so the Emory College campus is located in Atlanta. It's a 4-year experience, meaning students are there from their first year to their fourth year, right? And it roughly has 5,800 undergraduate students with an incoming class of approximately 1,400 or so students. That number changes, but let's call it between 1,350 and 1,400 incoming students. And that has an incoming class of a class size of roughly 25 students. And there's over 80 academic majors and 70 academic minors available on the Emory College campus. Then we have our Oxford College campus. And that's located in Covington, Georgia, which is about 40 minutes east of Atlanta. And the Oxford College campus is a 2-year campus experience, meaning students are there for the first 2 years. And after those first 2 years, those students will automatically transition to the Emory College campus in Atlanta for their last 2 years. And so the Oxford College campus has approximately 1,000 total students and an incoming class of approximately 450 to 500 or so students. Again, that number changes. It can be 550, it can be 450, but you're going to get somewhere between that 450 to 600 range in terms of the incoming class at Oxford. And so their class sizes there are approximately 20 students. And so, the listeners might be thinking, well, you've got these two great options. How do I choose? What are the differences? Well, we've talked about some of the differences: the size, the location, right? Those are some things you should be aware of. But academically, we have a little saying, we say academically equivalent, environmentally distinct. And so some of the unique differences I would say is, remember, there's no third and fourth year at Oxford. And so if you are looking to be engaged at a high level as soon as you walk into campus, Oxford College, you're going to be the VP or the vice president or the president of the club during your first few years, because you will take on those leadership roles immediately when you walk into campus. Whereas the Emory College campus, you may not be able to do that until that second, third, or fourth year, right? So there's some differences there, obviously, but academically, classes are going to be the same. The communities are very similar, though smaller at Oxford, right? More intimate is kind of the admission word we would use, right? And then I would say, example I often use is if you're touring colleges and you're looking at like small liberal arts colleges that are tucked away, kind of in this beautiful, pristine environment, that's Oxford College. That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like.
It really does. Felt like the boarding school that I worked at.
And so I tell students, you get that liberal arts experience that you're looking for, and then after 2 years, you transition to the Atlanta campus if you're looking for that experience as well. So you get the best of both worlds. And so we're just really fortunate to be able to offer students two options in this process. And in the CBE process that we talked about, I am reading applications for both campuses, right? Or whoever that pilot is, they're reading applications for both Emory and Oxford. And our committee process has representatives from Emory and Oxford. And so it really is a joint experience in our process as well.
Yeah, and I know the original Emory was on the Oxford campus location, but some of that history. And so Emory was birthed. And one thing that was hard for me to get a handle on at first, but when I realized it, kind of the pistons went off in my mind. And that is Oxford students automatically get their third and fourth year at Emory. There's not a reapplication process because Oxford is Emory. It's just two campuses. So students you can even apply ED to both, which is really unique because it's all Emory. And I had a student this year that did that and got in both. So then I had to counsel to them, which one do they pick? And ultimately, this student picked Oxford.
Yeah.
They decided to start in the smaller environment. And I've had other students that have done the opposite. And then sometimes you might admit one student for one college, but not the other, even though it's all Emory, because you feel like they may be a better fit at one or the other. Is that correct, Will?
That's correct. And I'll make a secondary point to that, which is that the student might even say in an application that they're looking at one specific campus more so than the other. Or they may, for example, have attended a high school. I've visited so many high schools over the years. For example, There's a high school that I used to visit in Florida where their senior class was 27 students. So they said to me very candidly, the students said, I'd love to go to Oxford. It feels like the right fit. Emory College in this scenario seemed to be a little too large for what I'd like, even though we're still talking about 5,700, 5,800 students, which is medium-sized, right? And so it's just all about context and student preference, and we just want to make sure that we give students as many choices to make sure they have a really great experience.
Great. So, Will, what does Emory need to work on to become even a better school, in your opinion?
That's a tough one. I don't think I prepared for that question.
I know you've been asked it by a student or a parent or someone before.
Yeah.
Just not on a podcast, right?
No, it's fine. Listen, I mean, this is the work that I do with Atlanta Community Engagement. I really believe we need to continue to serve the local community. I think we do good work in that space, but there's always more work to do, right? I mean, period. There's always more work that can be done. We're so fortunate to have such a great collection of academic scholars, incredible students who want to give over their time. And we do a lot of that work. I just want to be very clear about that. We are doing that work. But you said, what can we do to be even better school? We need to do more of that work because the work doesn't stop, right? Just because we served one school, for example, I'm sitting here planning my travel for the fall, and it'll all be virtual. But I'm looking at it at the Atlanta Public Schools, the list of all the Atlanta Public Schools, which, by the way, there are 9 Atlanta Public School high schools and 3 charter schools. And, I want to visit every single one of them. Even if there's not a student that wants to go to Emory at any of those schools, which is not the case. But I want to talk to them about Emory and get them to know about the resources. And even if they don't come to Emory, even if they go somewhere else, we want to make sure that we are being a resource to the community. And our Dean of Admission, Dr. John Lanning, said it best years ago. And these are examples. He said, imagine us being doctors. All right, we're medical professionals. And we have people all around us who need care. But we're only serving X amount of people, but we could serve more, right? And so let's serve as many people as we can. Even if they're not going to come to Emory, that's okay. Let's give of our time and resources to give back to those around us because we have the skills, and that's truly a gift. Let's give of that gift. And so we are doing that, but you said, what can we do to be better? We need to continue to do more of that.
You know what's crazy? Sometimes when I talk to local Atlanta students about Emory, they'll say, Emory, that's a hospital system. You get it. There's Emory Hospital everywhere and people know it. And that surprised me at first, but sometimes locally, I think the hospitals are what are almost more well-known than the university within the local population. I don't know if you've encountered that before, but
of course, yeah. I mean, Emory is one of the largest healthcare systems in the Southeast. And so people see Emory clinics and hospitals all across the city. And so for sure, I mean, yes, I agree. We do encounter that, but hey, I just want to drive home that point.
Next week in the news, another problem with shifting education online, cheating. A great article by Derek Newton of the Hechinger Report. Mark and Anika will discuss, what do you need to know about your financial aid officer? We have another bonus content. Mark will discuss how colleges use waitlists. And our interview will be part 2 with William Segura, the Associate Dean of Admission. Spotlight will be the discussion that Mr. Segura will have on Emory University.
And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. Your College Bound Kid is produced by Dave Vasaya of podcastengineers.com. If you find this podcast helpful, it would help us tremendously if you would subscribe and write us a review on your favorite podcast listening station. And please be sure to click the share button and send this to someone you know that can really use this information. The amazing music that you hear is by Victor Allen Weeks. Our image editor is Tauha Khan. Webmaster is Stalianos Dimitru. And marketing designs are by Kimberly Blass. And if you want to get a copy of the book, 171 Answers to the Most Asked College Admissions Questions, you can go right to 171answers.com. And if you want to have a college coaching session with Mark, you can send him a text to area code 404-664-4340. And if you have a question or a few questions that you would like to ask us,
and we'll include them on the show. You can just email us at questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. Every week, we'll take one question and include it in the episode. We don't like your questions. We love your questions. So send them our way. And by the way, check out our website, yourcollegeboundkid.com. Again, we thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to meeting with you again next week.